What's up, everyone? My name is Sheraz. I'm a real estate broker here in New York City for over a decade. Welcome back to the Sheraz podcast, episode number 2. Today, let's start talking about rates. Let's discuss rates. So last week, the Fed, they cut the rate by another 0.25%. Prior to that, in September, they had cut the rate by 0.5%. So we have a total rate cut close to a percent. We're at 0.75, 3/4 of a point there. So what gives? The rates are just going up and up. Today we're sitting at 6.92% for a 30-year. It makes no sense. In the beginning of September, we were at 6.1%. So how come after the federal rate cut, the market rates are up? The way I can explain it is that there's not enough energy in the market, or how can you say, like, the investors that are in the market are not convinced that the economy is going to get better, especially with the new presidency and the new administration coming in, and they need more proof. So because of this, the bond market is still up. So because the bond market is adjusting to the political environment that's going on right now, we won't see these rates drop anytime soon. I'm estimating probably around February, once the administration is finally in, and you'll start seeing some progress happening and the investors become a little bit more resilient to this, like they're a little bit more comfortable with what's going on politically and economically in the country, then these rates will start to climb down. Now remember, the federal rate doesn't determine your interest rate if you're getting a mortgage today. The federal rate just means what the banks borrow. So if you're getting a loan from Chase Bank, that's how much interest rate the Chase Bank is paying to the federal government to borrow money. And then they're the intermediary between you, the consumer, and the government and the money itself. So then they put their premium on top of it, which would be 1% or 2%. Typically, it was between 1 and 2% that they'll put their premium on top and then give it out to consumers in the front end. So we don't see that coming down. Instead, what we see is that the banks and the investors are seeing risk still in the market, and they're trying to mitigate that risk by keeping the rates high, so that way they don't fall for it afterwards. On the other hand, from what I see is that there should be no reason, if we're having reports that the economy is great, that the unemployment is as low, record lows, and the fact that job market is strong, why is it that we have our government telling us one thing, and then we have the banks saying, with the rates, completely telling a different story? So there's a piece of the puzzle missing over there. And as consumers, all we can do is just wait it out and see. My prediction is, I do believe the rates will come down. It's just a matter of when. But also don't expect the rates to just rapidly drop down to 5% or 4%. They're going to come down slowly. So if we're looking at 6.9 today, I think by January we should be at 6.1, maybe 6.5%, and then gradually come down from there. Because economically, that's a healthy way to do it, rather than just dropping the rate by another 1.5 point, and now all of a sudden you have massive amount of people on the market. You're back into that COVID era of the demand is up here and the supply is down here, and first-time buyers are going to get screwed on purchasing because now they have to come up with more money, over asking. The market's just going to inflate. So it's going to go back to that era. We don't want to go back over there, even though I know for homeowners it's great because you're like, hey, my value is going up like insane. But however, your value you only have realized value if you sell. So if you hold your property, you bought it at 600 and it's worth 800, and you're like, yeah, I have 200K in equity. Technically, no, until the time you sell, and then that's when you realize the value of the property. So it can be at 800, but then it can go up to 9, unless it comes back down to 850. But you won't know until you put it on the market what a buyer is willing to pay for that property, and then that's your realized equity inside of the house. So we're looking at like these rates, give or take, by February, March, I think we'll start seeing some type of decline. If all goes well, we'll start seeing a decline in the interest rates coming down, because at this point, it's not about the federal government. It's more about the banks and the investors that are backing these, that are giving out the money in the front end. It's about them feeling comfortable with the economy as much as the government is feeling comfortable with the numbers and everything, to say, okay, you know what? the risk isn't there as it was anymore, let's start bringing the rates down. And also you'll see a massive refinance boom. So anybody that's purchased a house within the last 24, I would even say 36 months, you probably have a rate over 7%. And the best thing for you to do would be to just refinance. Right now, it's still not the time, even though I know you see 6%. However, we will definitely see those 5.5%. And then you can buy points, work with your loan officer, buy those points, figure out what you need to do, get the lowest rate possible, and lock in a 30-year or 15-year, whatever you choose, whatever works for you. But definitely, I think, in my opinion, the rates should be coming down soon. And it's just a matter of like maybe a few months or so. However, if you're buying currently, continue with your purchase with the rate. Just make sure that mortgage payment is doable at least for 24 months. So that's what I advise all my clients. 12 to 24 months, you want to make sure whether you're getting 7, 7.5, 8, 6.5, whatever it is, whatever payment you're getting today and you're securing, just make sure you can sustain that payment for at least the next 12 to 24 months. And you'll have that window of opportunity for refinancing and bringing that rate down, bringing your mortgage payment down, and some relief on your financials. So that's, again, just to recap, Fed doesn't determine the rate, it's the banks. The Fed just lends money, the Fed just insures money, they don't lend money. So they only lend money to the big banks, and then the banks, however, then lend it to you. But the federal government in the back is insuring the money. We discussed home prices. Are they going to go up or down? I think home prices are going to gradually go up in the metropolitan areas, especially the bigger cities. You're going to see an increase in home value. If the rates come down, you'll have more buyers in the market. Obviously, if the rates gradually come down, gradually you'll have more and more buyers that are going to come into the market. And you'll see the home prices go up. A healthy rate is anywhere between 1% and 3% a year, upwards of 5%. That's a healthy market. However, if you're seeing a 20-30% jump in home values, then guess what? It can decline 20 to 30% as well. So you want to stay, if you're in a city and you're looking to buy, and you can buy today, I suggest you go ahead and purchase today because the prices are just going to go up. So if you do the math, play around with the mortgage calculator, and you can see that even if you were to purchase a property a year from now, but that property was $100,000 more or $150K more than what it is today, with the lower interest rate, you're pretty much at the same mortgage payment you would be if you were to buy something today at today's price. So you'll just be off by a few $100, but at the end of the day, if you purchase something today, you didn't have to pay that price that you're going to pay 12 months from now, which would be another $100K or $150K on the home price. So you'll be much closer to paying off your mortgage. Aside from just looking at your mortgage payment, the principal balance, you'll have less principal balance to pay off compared to a year from now if you buy a year later on. However, if you're not ready today, you're not ready today. Do what's best for you and what's best for your pockets. If you need to wait, just wait it out for the lower rates and just look for a great deal when it comes on the market. Next, we're going to go into, this is for New York City. There's something called the FARES Act that is going to get voted on today. This stands for Fairness in Apartment Rentals Expenses. This essentially is saying that landlords must pay the broker fee on rentals when it comes to leases, new apartment leases here in New York City. Now, in the beginning of my career, I was exclusively rentals for, I think, give or take 4 to 5 years. And I did a lot of rentals in my career. And I think this has some good intentions. I have an article here from AM New York, and we have Mayor Adams giving his take on it. He said, some of the ideals collide with the reality of the operationalizing implementations. We got to get it right. Make sure that we reach the goals that we're looking for, and at the same time, don't hurt small property owners and try to get some relief to some of those who are trying to live in the city. I think the bill has the right intentions, but sometimes good intentions do not get the results you're looking for. The bill basically suggests that landlords who hire a broker should be responsible for paying the broker's fee and not the tenant. And in New York City, the broker fee can be upwards of 15% of the annual rent. In my opinion, this is absurd. In today's era, 2024, there's no reason you should be paying a 15% of the annual rent broker's fee. That is absolutely absurd. That equivalents to, I think, almost 2 months of rent as a broker fee. And unless it's a unique piece of property, it's a unique transaction, then I understand that the fee is a little bit higher. But definitely that does not constitute that a fee should be that extreme. But also, remember, fees are completely negotiable. And this is not a secret. This is when you first search broker fees in New York City, there's tons of articles out there. There's brokers that say it loud and proud. Fees are negotiable. So you always want to negotiate the fee. However, this bill that was introduced by Councilman Chiosi, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Last year in 2023, according to him, he was looking for an apartment, and an agent came by or a broker came by, showed him the apartment, and he signed a lease, and he was forced, quote unquote, forced to pay a 2 months broker fee. That makes no sense to me. How were you forced to pay the broker's fee? You can literally negotiate the broker's fee down. On top of that, you're a councilman. You have a permanent job, essentially. Like, which landlord wouldn't take you as a tenant? So you could have negotiated that fee. I feel like you paid that fee just to introduce this legislation into the into the council, so this way you can have it passed. Because a part of his bill also states, which I don't agree with, states that even if a landlord gives permission to the broker and the agent. Now, when you say a landlord hires a broker, that means that's the exclusive broker for the landlord. So we sign a documentation with the landlord saying, hey, we have the exclusive rights to market this property and to show this property. And even you, Mr. Landlord, if you find a tenant, you are responsible for paying us this fee. And we signed this exclusive agreement. So I'm all for that. If you sign that exclusive agreement, you are representing one party. You're not representing the tenant's best interest, only the landlord's best interest. You should be paying by the party you're being represented. So if the landlord is signing an exclusive, you pay that, the landlord has to pay the broker fee. I'm totally for that. However, the difference here is he is saying in his bill that even if a landlord gives me, let's say a landlord says, Sheraz, I need you to rent my apartment. And I say, hey, give me an exclusive. This way I can just market. I can spend my money advertising this apartment, put my resources into finding you the best tenant possible for your unit. And then you're going to pay me. But he says, no, you know what? I don't need all of that. I'm giving the listing over to 10 different brokers. Whoever comes first with the best applicant will take it. When you do that, I have to charge for the tenant, because at this point, I don't work for the landlord. I am going to work for the tenant. So if I do have a prospective tenant that comes in and they say, hey, I want to get this apartment, I'm going to sign that application. I'm signing a disclosure. It's called an agency disclosure form that New York State has had for years. And the tenant signs, and it states on there that I am a tenant's agent, not the landlord's agent. And I'm representing the tenant in the tenant's best interest. So I'll negotiate on their behalf, whatever I have to do to get them the best deal possible and to secure that unit. And then the tenant will pay me. So when it's something open like that, where we're not getting paid if a landlord just gives permission for us to advertise, that's nothing, because even when he or she gives us permission to advertise the apartment, we still have to spend some type of money advertising, because most of these websites are not free that we post listings on. And even to post it on our MLS or anything, it has to be an exclusive. So you can't just take an open listing and advertise it all over the place. Zillow, StreetEasy, it has to be exclusive. So the only real open place that you can advertise a listing is by word of mouth or Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist, like things like those, but they still cost money. It still costs money to go open, travel time, showings. And then at the end, you're telling me I might rent it because 9 other brokers have that listing as well, and one of them might end up renting it. So all those resources are wasted. So it doesn't make any sense that you're not going to let us advertise. So even if we advertise an apartment, we have to get paid by the landlord. No landlord in their right mind is going to say, yes, I'm going to pay the fee, and but it's not an exclusive. So us agents can't then go ahead and advertise apartments, even though we might have apartments available, but we can't show the public because now we have to find word of mouth. So you're just going to have inventory that's already struggling in New York City just drop significantly. Like I feel like that transparency is going to be gone from there. It's just not going to be there. So at least we can still advertise the apartments. However, we should fully disclose, which I do on all of my listings, we should fully disclose that we are a broker and a broker fee applies. That I think should be universal and it should be impacted. So the bill states that, this is what the bill states. It says the landlord has to pay the fee for a broker who lists a unit for them, and that broker and landlords have to disclose any other fees to tenants up front. So that last part was pretty much taken care of in 2019 when there was a major bill passed for tenant protection. And one of them was that you can't charge application fees, can't extend more than, I believe it was $20. And before it was like you could charge whatever you want in application fees. So now it was capped at $20. If the broker, anybody charges an application fee, it cannot be more than $20. And other than that, you can't charge any other administration fees, document fees, none of that stuff. So it just comes down to rent, security, and also the rent. Also, landlords are restricted to just collecting 1 month's rent. They can't collect the first month, last month, or 6 months up front, and they can't do that. It's 1 month plus security deposit, plus a $20 app fee, and if there's any broker fees involved. And the disclosures have always been upfront. You contact any broker, you're welcome to ask them if you're looking for an apartment here in New York City, and I'm sure you're aware that, hey, there's going to be a fee involved. You're going to a service-based business that gets paid based off of their services, so there has to be a fee involved. And when you ask them, they'll tell you, yes, this is our broker fee. Or they'll say, hey, no, I'm getting paid by the landlord, because it's called double dipping. So if you got paid by the landlord, you also can't get paid by the tenant unless you fully disclose it to both sides. Currently, that's how it works, is if you currently disclose it to both sides, but once you tell the tenant, hey, I'm getting paid by the landlord, I also need you to pay me, no tenant in their right mind is going to pay you. Same goes the other way. If you tell the landlord, hey, I'm getting paid by the tenant, but I'm also going to take money from you, it's not going to happen. It's one way or the other. Or you can have a combination of whatever your fee is can be split between both parties. As long as all the parties involved are fully disclosed, and that's law, by the way, that all parties disclosed have to know what the fees were involved. Essentially call it closing costs were involved in the transaction. So there is no hiding it from anybody. So the disclosures were already there. Everything's already there. So this bill, in my opinion, is just, I get it. The exclusive part, I'm totally for it. If a landlord is hiring me and I'm representing the landlord, the only way to do that is to have that exclusive signed by the landlord. Same goes for the tenant. If I'm going to represent the tenant, I have an exclusive signed by the tenant that says I'm representing you in this transaction. So that's why you're paying me the fee. But the fact, what I don't agree with is the fact that you can just for having a listing and posting it online, the landlord is obligated to pay the broker's fee. I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then you have, to make it worse, you have all these headlines that are saying titles like forced broker fee. They're using these words, forced broker fee. So you have goodbye broker fee. You have, I'll tell you right now. No, I can't pull it up right now, but there was a couple of news media that was circulating the word forced, the ban to forced broker fees in New York City. Again, nothing is forced. You completely have the option to pay the broker's fee, to negotiate the broker's fee, just like you can negotiate the rent. The rent is not set in stone. If the landlord is asking $3,000, you can say, hey, I'll offer you $25,000 and start working from there. Obviously, if that's the last unit in the building and it's a prime building or a prime, property in a location you really want to be in, there's only 3 units available in that area, and this is the only one going for $3,000, and the other ones are going for $3,500, and you go in and ask for $25,000, landlord says, no, the lowest I can do is $2,950, and you're like, no, I want to. The landlord obviously can stick to $3,000 or $2,950, whatever they choose, because they know that there's nothing else in the market. I mean, that's just supply and demand. That's just how it works. But however, when it comes to this bill, I believe that part is crazy, and I think Eric Adams is pretty much on Mayor Eric Adams is pretty much on point with it, where he's like, I don't think this is going to solve the issue that it's actually going for, just because it doesn't identify it. And and I think and I believe that you're attacking a service-based industry in the first place, like where every agent has their own value, has their own I can charge a certain amount of money because of my experience. But if I'm my first year in, I might charge a lot less. But guess what? I'm not going to be that educated on how do I represent my client. I'm still going to be representing at my best ability, but my best ability might not be the same that another broker that's been in the industry for a decade is going to be. So at the end of the day, you're paying for the level of service you get. It's like you hire a handyman to install a new flooring in your house, or you hire a flooring company specialist that just does flooring. You'll see the results in the pricing and in the end result. And so it's the same thing when it comes to real estate brokers or any other service-based industry. You're paying for the service. So if my service is at this level compared to the next brokerage where they're down here, where they might just be opening doors and stuff, I'm gonna charge more for my service. That's just how it goes. However, to dictate on these little things, you have to get paid by just this one side, I feel like that's unfair, and that shouldn't be done unless it's fully disclosed. Obviously, if it's an exclusive, I'm all for it, and that's how I've been operating my brokerage. We have an exclusive with a landlord. That landlord is paying us. But if we don't have an exclusive, it's an open listing, the landlord's probably giving it to 30 brokers. They're advertising it themselves everywhere. So at the end of the day, we're all fighting for that one piece of pie, and whoever gets there first gets it. And I think at that point, it shouldn't be forced upon the landlord to pay the broker's fee. As long as us brokers disclose everything, which again, we have multiple laws in place already disclosing it. So councilman, I think you just didn't negotiate properly, so maybe you need to just figure out your negotiation skills and up them up, or maybe you didn't have somebody representing you in the transaction in your best interest, so you need to figure that out and then go from there. But definitely this last part that you added into that bill doesn't work at all. And when it comes to rental prices, so another thing that a lot of the brokers and Mayor Eric Adams has also pointed out is the fact that you're just going to increase rents. So if you're going to force landlords to pay the broker's fee, just for the sake of math, let's say a rental is going for $2,400 a month and the landlord has to pay the fee, market rate is $24, guess what? Then the landlord is going to take that fee. Let's say he's paying out 1 month's rent as a broker's fee. He's going to take that fee of $2,400 divided by 12 or the duration of the lease, divide it up. So if it's 12 months, that's $200 a month. Boom, add it on to the rent, that's $2,600 a month in rent. And he'll say, okay, no problem, I'll pay the broker's fee. Here, Sheraz, I'll sign the exclusive, go ahead. But now guess what? My job working for that landlord is to find him the best possible tenant that's gonna pay as close as possible to that $2,600, because I represent that landlord at this point and their best interest. So it's gonna get baked in whether you like it or not. Just like when inflation happens, the cost of milk and eggs and everything goes up, because even though the expense from the farm and then the truck driver getting to the shelf, all of those expenses go up, guess who gets passed down to? The consumer. At the end of the day, it's the consumer, the person that's spending their money. But the difference is, in America, we're allowed to choose where we spend our money. Especially in New York City, with hundreds of brokers out there, you're allowed to choose where to spend your money. So if you don't want service from a certain broker, you can always go to another one, and you can negotiate the fees. You can see who's charging you up front. You can ask the broker, hey, if I rent an apartment from you, what's your fee? They should have a standardized fee. It shouldn't be, hey, if you rent this apartment, it's going to be this much, or you rent this apartment, it's going to be this much. That doesn't make any sense to me. We have a standardized fee over here in our brokerage. So if you rent an apartment from us, we'll say, hey, no problem, you rent an apartment, this is the broker's fee, no matter what apartment you get with us. That's it. No matter what neighborhood, what anything, it doesn't matter. This is the broker's fee. And we're very upfront about it. It's transparency. Communication is there. No surprises. And at the end, all parties in the transaction, landlord or management company to the tenant, everybody gets a breakdown of, hey, this is what was charged, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and that's it. So everybody's on the same page and nobody's mad at each other. And remember, everything is negotiable when it comes to broker fees. And last but not least, we have a revenue. Real Estate Board of New York, they actually introduced their own bill side to the FARES Act, saying that, okay, since this bill is kind of ridiculous when it comes to this, the other side is that we'll just have more paperwork. Essentially, the bill just says we'll have more paperwork. We'll require brokers and agents to sign more documents and tenants to sign more documents that say that they were aware of this, et cetera, and this is what they're paying, and they know it's negotiable. That's about it, but it was already a given that it's negotiable. It's just the wrong message that has been given out to the public through the media, through like all of these different campaigns, that it's non-negotiable or that they're being forced, quote unquote, to pay these fees. That's ridiculous. They're not getting forced to pay anything. So, if you're looking for an apartment, just know you can definitely find it. If you think the fee is too high or something's too good to be true, it probably is. And shop around, do your homework, and you'll be good to go. And in terms of when it comes to rates and stuff, let's see where the rates go. I believe the rates are going to come down. However, you have to sit with your broker, consult, sit with your loan officer, figure out like what makes sense for you in terms of purchasing a home today or waiting it out for 1 year from now. See where your savings are going to be, what you're going to have in terms of down payment. Will you have more? Will you have less? What's going to happen? All right. Thank you guys for tuning into this podcast. And make sure you like, subscribe, share this, listen to it fully. There's a lot of information in it. And if there's anything else you'd like me to cover, leave it in the comments below. I'll see you guys on the next one.